Okay, we're on chapter 31. Let's make a deal. When I was in grad school, I developed the habit of tipping back in my chair at the dining room table. I would do it whenever I visited my parents' house, and my mother would constantly reprimand me. "Randolph, you're going to break that chair," she'd say. I liked leaning back in the chair. It felt comfortable, and the chair seemed to handle itself on two legs just fine. So meal after meal after meal, I'd lean back, and she'd reprimand. One day, my mother said, "Stop leaning back in that chair. I'm not going to tell you again." Now that sounded like something I could sign up for. So I suggested we create a contract. A parent-child agreement in writing. If I broke the chair, I'd have to pay to replace not just the chair, but as an added inducement, the entire dining room set. Replacing an individual chair on a 20-year-old set would be impossible. But until I actually broke the chair, no lectures from Mom. Mother was certainly right. I was putting stress on the chair legs. But both of us decided that this agreement was a way to avoid arguments. I was acknowledging my responsibility in case there was damage. She was in the position of being able to say, "You should always listen to your mother," if one of the chair legs cracked. The chair has never been broken, and whenever I visit her house and lean backward, the agreement still stands. There's not a crossword. In fact, the whole dynamic has changed. I won't say Mom has gone as far as to actually encourage me to lean back, but I do think she's long had her eye on a new dining room set. You know, it's funny, I don't know if you remember this, but when I was in 6th or 7th grade, I leaned back in a chair and I fell backwards and I got a concussion. Yeah, it was smart. 32. Don't complain, just work harder. Too many people go through life complaining about their problems. I've always believed that if you took 1/10 the energy you put into complaining and applied it to solving the problem, you'd be surprised by how well things can work out. I've known some terrific non-complainers in my life. One was Sandy Blatt, my landlord during graduate school. When he was a young man, a truck backed into him while he was unloading boxes into a cellar of a building. He toppled backwards, down the steps, and into the cellar. "How far was the fall?" I asked. His answer was simple. "Far enough." He spent the rest of his life as a quadriplegic. Sandy had been a phenomenal athlete at the time of the accident. He was engaged to be married. He didn't want to be a burden to his fiancée, so he told her, "You didn't sign on for this. I'll understand if you want to back out. You can go in peace." And she did. I met Sandy when he was in his 30s, and he just wowed me with his attitude. He had worked hard and become a licensed marriage counselor. He got married and adopted children, and when he talked about his medical issues, he did so matter-of-factly. He once explained to me that temperature changes were hard on quadriplegics because they can't shiver. "Pass me that blanket, will you, Randy?" he'd say. And that was it. My favorite non-complainer of all time may be Jackie Robinson, the first African American to play Major League Baseball. He endured racism that many people today couldn't even fathom. He knew he had to play better than the white guys, and he knew he had to work harder. So that's what he did. He vowed not to complain, even if fans spit on him. I used to have a photo of Jackie Robinson hanging in my office, and it saddened me that so many of my students couldn't identify him or knew little about him. Many never even noticed the photo. Young people raised on color TV don't spend a lot of time looking at black and white images. That's too bad. There are no better role models than people like Jackie Robinson and Sandy Blatt. The message in their stories is this: complaining does not work as a strategy. We all have finite time and energy. Any time we spend whining is unlikely to help us achieve our goals, and it won't make us any happier. And one last chapter for the night is chapter 33, Treat the Disease, Not the Symptom. Years ago, I dated a lovely young woman who was a few $1,000s in debt. She was completely stressed out about this. Every month, more interest would be added to her debts. To deal with her stress, she would go every Tuesday night to a meditation and yoga class. This was her one free night, and she said it seemed to be helping her. She would breathe in, imagining she was finding ways to deal with her debts. She would breathe out, telling herself that her money problems would one day be behind her. It went on like this, Tuesday after Tuesday. Finally, one day I looked through her finances with her. I figured out that if she spent 4 or 5 months working on a part-time job on Tuesday nights, she could actually pay off all the money she owed. I told her, I had nothing against yoga or meditation, but I didn't think it was the best way to try to treat the disease first. Her symptoms were stress and anxiety. Her disease was the money she owed. Why don't you get a job on Tuesday nights and skip yoga for a while, I suggested. This was something of a revelation for her, and she took my advice. She became a Tuesday night waitress and soon enough paid off her debts. After that, she could go back to yoga and really breathe easier. Okay, I'm sorry. One more because it's not even a page long. Number 34. Don't obsess over what people think. This also sounds like one I really need to hear right now. I've found that a substantial fraction of many people's days is spent worrying over what others think of them. If nobody ever worried about what was in other people's heads, we'd all be 33% more effective in our lives and on our jobs. How did I come up with that 33%? I'm a scientist. I like exact numbers, even if I can't always prove them. So let's just run with 33%. I used to tell anyone who worked in my research group, you don't ever have to worry about what I'm thinking in my head. What I'm thinking, good or bad, I'll let you know what's in my head. That meant when I wasn't happy about something, I spoke up, often directly and not always tactfully. But on the positive side, I was able to reassure people, if I haven't said anything, you have nothing to worry about. College students and colleagues came to appreciate that, and they didn't waste a lot of time obsessing over what is Randy thinking, because mostly what I was thinking was this. I have people on my team who are 33% more effective than everyone else. That's what's in my head. Alright, good night, Mommy. Mwah. And I'm very proud of you getting through your second session of chemo. I know it's not easy, but man, I don't know if anyone could do it with more grace and elegance and beauty than you. I love you, Mom.